Hey everybody. So the other day I spoke about how much I love using Google Forms to do a daily feelings check-in with my students. And I shared a little form that looks like this. Today I want to explain a little bit why I choose to use forms and how the data going into Sheets is a really helpful tool for me. So I have my daily feelings check-in. I use a drop down for their names. I do not allow students to type their names in themselves. The reason for that is once we get to Sheets and we start filtering and sorting data, it doesn't work if students have typed their name differently on different days. And I've had students that will type their first name and their last initial on some days. They'll type their first and last name. They'll type their name without a capital letter. They'll type their name with a capital letter, they'll type a nickname. And so I end up having this student where it's really hard to track and find all their data because they keep typing their name in a different way. This way, it's in a drop down, they select their name, it's going to look exactly the same each time so that I can sort their data. I choose to use check boxes for mine so that they can select more than one. I've found that when I do that, I get a little bit more on the explanation. So when students check that they're in the blue zone and the yellow zone, then they'll usually explain to me a little bit and tell me why. If I just force them to pick one, I don't usually get as much information in the explain section. So students fill this out each day. And when we look at my end of the form, I can look at their data by clicking on responses and looking through here. I can go individual and look at each one individually. As the year goes on and they've filled this out on a daily basis, and I have hundreds of responses to this form, that gets really cumbersome to look at. So I always create a sheet. I'm going to create a new sheet to go along with this. And we're going to see what this data looks like once we get it in here. So I've got the timestamp here, the student's name, what they selected, and their explanation. Now, when students write longer responses, it ends up going off the page over here. It can also end up looking really busy and not something that's as easy to look at. So one thing that I found is I thought, oh, I'll just format my sheet like I do on anything else. However, if I try to format this tab here with the form responses, it will not work. Every time I get a new form submission, they're going to look like this, even if I've added lines in my columns, if I've bolded things, if I've changed the way it looks, it will still revert back every time I get a new submission. So the only way to really change the way this looks is by using a formula and adding a tab to the form. And I'm going to go over that next. Okay, so down here at the bottom, what I'm going to do is I'm going to click this plus because I want to add a sheet. I also want it to be the first thing I see when I look here. I don't want this one to show up first. I want to be looking at this one. So I'm going to slide this over so that this is the one that shows up when I go to my sheet each day. Then in the very first cell, I'm going to copy and paste this formula. So I'm doing a query, which means I'm basically pulling information from this tab onto this tab. And I'm taking the responses from column A through D. So I'm going to go look over here and say, yep, see, I've got my timestamp name, I've got my information in C, D. So that's all I need is information. So it's exclamation point A, colon, D. If I needed it through column E or F, I could just change this letter right here. So now you'll see it's pulling the information from here to here, but now I can format it. So now I can bold my titles here at the top. I can take my extra columns here that I'm not using and I can actually delete them. So I'm going to go all the way over to the side. I'm going to say, I'm not really using these columns, so I'm just going to get rid of them. And then I can stretch out column D and I can wrap the text so that this is a little easier for me to look at. Okay, I can do the same thing here where I've got my blue zone, green zone. I'm going to stretch this out a little bit so I can see. So this is going to make it so that the text isn't going off the side. It's a little bit easier to look at. I can take this, I can center these, I can make them a little larger. I can get rid of things. I basically can just take this and make this look a lot nicer. I can give myself lines in between. So make sure I'm still. clicked on something and got rid of my reference. So we're going to undo that. There we go. So now when I click on column A, I can give myself some nice lines here. If I wanted to bold their names or make their names a little larger, I could do that. Okay. I can also do some conditional formatting. So what that means is I could put in and input like a chart, or I could have these, let's say I want it to turn red if red zone is present here so that I'm really getting flagged. I could click on here and go to conditional formatting. And I could say, I want this to turn red if text contains the word red. So that I'm getting a little bit of a heads up. So anytime a student types in that red, I'm getting a heads up. I can also go up here and I can add a filter. And this is what I like to do because eventually you're going to have hundreds of responses in here. I like to create a filter. Click on here. And I like to do filter by condition. Date is today. And I do that so that every time I go to look at this form, I'm seeing today's. I can also add an additional filter. So if I'm having some concerns about a student and I want to see, where are they at right now? What's going on with them? Am I seeing any things with them over time? I can clear all of these and be like, I really just want to see Eric's. And then I can see everything Eric has put, and I can see, wow, he's putting in the blue zone every day, or he's putting in the red zone every day. And then when I'm done looking at that, I just select all. I go back to having all my students again. So I know that was a lot of information, but down in the discussion box at the bottom, I'm going to post that formula that I used to make it so that I could edit and format my form data to make it easier to read and look at. If you have any questions for me, feel free to get a hold of me. I hope you enjoyed this.